Good evening and welcome everyone to tonight's meeting of the Urban Planning Delegated Committee. Before we commence the meeting, I request that all mobile telephones are turned off or switched to silent. Thank you. My name is Councillor Nick Stavru and I chair this committee. The Urban Planning Delegated Committee meeting is being live streamed on the Council website to enable public viewing of the proceedings, including councillor deliberations and voting. The meeting has also been recorded and will be made available on the Council website as soon as it's practicable after the meeting. Should any technical problems be encountered during the meeting will be adjourned until the problem is rectified, or if needed, the meeting will be postponed. I will start by introducing my fellow councillors, starting by seated those on the left of the horseshoe table in the Council chamber are Councillor Jim Park, Councillor Cynthia Watson, Councillor Felicity Sinfield, our Mayor, Councillor Wes Gold, Councillor Di Gillies. On the other side of the table, we have Councillor Lisa Hollingsworth, who's also our Deputy Mayor, Councillor Gary Thompson, Councillor Jane Addis, Councillor Susan Bigger, and Councillor Victor Franco. I also acknowledge our CEO, Mr. Philip Storer, seated behind the Mayor, and our Director of Urban Living, Mr. Scott Walker, to my right. Our Manager of Governance and Legal, Mr. Brian Wee, to my left, and there are officers in attendance tonight, and they will be introduced as they present their reports. The primary purpose of the Urban Planning Delegated Committee is to deal with issues under the Planning and Environment Act and the Building Act. This committee has delegated authority to make decisions on behalf of Council, and councillors are familiar with each report, which includes a summary of the objections received. For those in the gallery presenting this evening, when we come to the agenda item, it will be introduced by an officer. I will then call you one by one to come forward and address the committee. If you're making a submission, please present your viewpoints clearly and concisely on why you support or oppose the planning application. Please do not repeat what earlier speakers have said and keep the submission focused on relevant issues and points not previously raised. If you are opposed to the planning application, please tell the committee why you disagree and suggest an alternative approach that would satisfy your concerns. Please focus on the concerns rather than matters of history or detail in the officer's report. There is a strict limit of 3 minutes for each speaker, including councillors, and whilst as chair I can vary that time, I will seldom do. I will ask speakers to sit at the top of the horseshoe table, and I will invite those against the report to speak first, followed by those in favour. At the 2.5-minute mark, I will make this sound, indicating that you have 30 seconds remaining to conclude your presentations. We'll start with apologies tonight. Mr. Wee, are there any apologies this evening?
Through you, Chair, there are no apologies this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Wee. First item on the agenda is the adoption of the minutes. Councillors, can I please have a motion to adopt and confirm the minutes of the Urban Planning Delegated Committee held on the 20th of March 2023? Councillor Gillies, thank you.
So moved, Chair.
And do I have a seconder? Councillor Gold, thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Councillors, is anybody opposed? There be no opposition. I put the motion to the vote. The motion is carried unanimous. Number 2 in the agenda tonight, declaration of conflict of interest of councillors. Councillors and officers, are there any conflicts of interest that need to be declared tonight? Councillor Thompson, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I've got a material conflict of interest in a property under item 3.1 of the agenda tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. As we arrive to that item, you will be asked to leave the chamber. Thank you. Having finished the conflicts of interest, we move to the third item on the agenda, which is the main part of the meeting, the presentation of officer reports. Tonight, we have one report on the agenda.
I'll declare my conflict on this item.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson.
Chair.
We'll wait for Councillor Thompson to leave the chamber. We'll resume with item 3 and report 3.1, which is the only report in tonight's agenda. It's the Baldwin Heritage Peer Review, Stage 3, Outcomes of Preliminary Consultation. Tonight we have our Strategic Planner, Ms Rachel Bryan, to present the report. Thank you, Ms Bryan.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, councillors, officers and attendees. The purpose of this report is to inform the Urban Planning Delegated Committee on the outcomes of the preliminary consultation process for the Balwyn Heritage Stage 3 peer review and the officer's response to the feedback. The report also seeks a resolution to commence a planning scheme amendment to apply a permanent heritage overlay to the properties identified. Officers engaged heritage consultants GML Heritage, formerly Context, to investigate the heritage significance of 18 post-war properties within Balwyn. Following completion of their detailed assessment, GML found that the following 17 properties outlined in the report warranted inclusion in the heritage overlay. Preliminary consultation on the draft heritage citations was undertaken from 4th of November to 5th of December 2022. Owners and occupiers of the affected properties, as well as owners of adjoining and adjacent properties, community and historical groups were notified in writing of the consultation period and invited to provide feedback. 14 submissions were received, including 10 objective and 4 supporting submissions. Council's heritage consultant has recommended changes to the heritage citation for 7 Millfay Court, Balwyn North, to reflect the replacement of the original butterfly roof with a skillion roof. No further changes are recommended as outlined in the submission table attached to the report. I would also like to highlight that a submission was received from the owner at 44 Panoramic Road, Balwyn North, opposing the inclusion of the property in the heritage overlay. The submission was received after the officer report had already been finalised and is therefore not addressed in the report. The late submission was circulated to the councillors prior to this meeting, including the officer and councillors' heritage consultants' response to the feedback. No changes are recommended in response to the submission. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Bryan. Tonight, we have 4 speakers wishing to make submissions on this item, and I would first like to call upon Mrs. Neri McMahon, followed by Mr. Dimitrios Loutas. Thank you, Ms. McMahon. Please commence with your name and suburb, and reminding you that you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
My name is Nari McMahon and I live...
Could you come closer to the mic, please? Thank you.
Is that better? My name is Nari McMahon and I live at 7 Millfay Court, North Balwyn, and have done so since 1971. Because I'm an old lady, I have written out the reasons and the changes that we have made to the property, because I just can't remember them all. And I've got copies if I can hand them out, or what is the protocol for that?
Yes, somebody would come and pick them up.
I don't know if I've got one for everybody, but I didn't know how many would be here on the committee. When we moved into the house, it was an absolute, well, I won't say it's a wreck because it hasn't been built for too long, but it had never been finished. And I've been through so many photographs trying to find what I wanted, but we didn't have the money to pay for photographs probably in those days. The house is crumbling. There's a lot of slate, which is soft slate. I've nearly fallen over several times on bits and pieces. It's coming off on the house itself. And it's not just the money, although it's very costly to keep up, but it's also, at my age, trying to find tradesmen, and it's really difficult. And we've done so much work to the house to make it what it is, and put so much money in it. We've had to replace the trees that were just surrounding a huge big poplar trees because they were all suckering everywhere. And it's been a very difficult job, and it's been done over a long time. Please have a look at what I've put on this handout, and please consider it carefully. Just as an aside, inside I was horrified when I went there because all the paintwork inside was painted baboon's anus pink. I think you'll know what I mean. And it just was unfinished and really hard, and we've had lots of different things to do to it over many years. Now I'm on my own, and it's very difficult.
That's it, Ms McMahon. Thank you very much. You finished well within time. Councillors, are there any questions of Ms McMahon? I should say, Ms McMahon, you were opposed to the officer's recommendation.
I'm very opposed, yes.
There be no questions. You may return to your seat. Thank you so much.
Please consider.
The next speaker for tonight is Mr. Dimitrios Loutas, followed by Mr. Zachary Tyler. Mr. Loutas, please. Actually, I apologise, Dr. Loutas.
Okay, so my name's Dimitrios Loutas. I'm from 67 Hill Road.
Thank you.
And I'm hoping to present arguments against the inclusion of 67 Hill Road into the heritage overlay. So essentially, GML Heritage argues that it should be included because of criterion A and E. So criterion A pertains to its historical significance. So according to GML Heritage, the house fulfills this criteria because it's representative of the post-war suburban infill with fine buildings designed by prominent Melbourne architects. So in their report, they state that the design of the house is by Kevin O'Neill and Raymond Tung from the office of Bogle and Banfield, a prominent Melbourne architectural firm at the time. So this implies the involvement of Bogle and Banfield in design. However, the title block on the original working drawings clearly states the house is designed by O'Neill and Tung, with no mention of Bogle and Banfield. So a prior study by Build Heritage found that O'Neill and Tung happened to work at Bogle and Banfield, but that the house was a one-time collaboration between the two young architects as a private bootleg commission, and indeed there's no other known works from them. Now, GML Heritage's emphasis on Bogle and Banfield by including the firm's historical brief, I think is a misleading attempt to add architectural weight and merit to the house, and in order to embellish its historical significance. So effectively approving the heritage overlay based on their recommendation for satisfying criteria A could be viewed as, and should be viewed, I suppose, as a dishonour to the listed prominent architects and their works in the thematic environmental history of Boroondara. Now, as far as criterion E is concerned, that pertains to aesthetic significance. So there's basically one striking characteristic to the house, and that's the lantern roof, something that's not a signature trait of North Balwyn. In fact, the Build Heritage report notes only 2 other examples of lantern roofs in the area, and these are designed by a local architect, John Tipping, and ironically, they're not listed for heritage protection. So what makes this house stand out is the unique orientation and slope of the site. Being an elevated sloping corner site with horizon views, one could easily argue that any design response would have been appealing. Now, I certainly hope that these arguments against inclusion are taken into consideration by the panel. Now, I understand that opinions can vary as to what qualifies something to be deemed worthy of heritage protection. This is highlighted in the recent case of 32 Corby Street, Balwyn North, where even the experts didn't agree on its inclusion. However, facts are facts, and at the very least, one would expect the specialist heritage consultants should base their opinion on facts. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Loutas. Councillors, are there any questions for Dr. Loutas? There be no questions. You may return to your seat. Thank you very much. Now, I call upon Mr. Zachary Tyler, followed by Mr. Sanjeev Well. Mr. Tyler, thank you. Please state your name and suburb.
Good evening. My name is Zachary Tyler. I live at 9 Tormey Street, Balwyn North. I'm here tonight to urge the Council to oppose the recommendation to seek authorization for an amendment to give effect to the heritage overlay over these properties. I just wanted to touch on 4 points that I raised in my written submission, which I'll briefly paraphrase here. The first one is that I've no doubt that my property was nominated for inclusion on the basis that it was designed by a renowned architect, Peter McIntyre. It's quite well known in Melbourne and other locations. I don't think that necessarily merits inclusion of this property when Mr. McIntyre has gone on the record rejecting the modernist style of architecture that this house was built in, and modernism in general. In my submission, I referred to an article from the Sydney Morning Herald from the 12th of June 2017, in which Mr. McIntyre says, and I quote, "Modernism failed in the sense that it became too brutal. People reacted against it." Now, I would submit that there's no planning benefit, no heritage benefit in providing a level of protection for a style when the architect of that style has rejected it. The second point I'd like to touch on is that I think as a matter of orderly planning in heritage protection, with the exception of certain perhaps standout unique developments, it would be more appropriate to protect a broader area with a heritage overlay rather than cherry-pick specific locations. I used to live in Brunswick in a single-fronted brick workers' cottage in an area that the entire area was covered by a heritage overlay to protect that style of building. And I think that it would be a greater advantage in terms of orderly planning if a heritage overlay were applied more broadly to protect the broader character of a neighborhood rather than just singling out specific houses. The third point I'd like to highlight is that I think that it takes a lot of resources to go through a planning scheme amendment. I'm a planning solicitor myself. I understand the level of work that it requires to go through a PSA, and I think that the council's resources would be better spent focusing on some of the more core issues to protecting the heritage or amenity values of Baldwin North. It's an area where I think anyone who's traveled through the area has seen the extent of redevelopment in the area and can understand, for example, the loss of a lot of the garden feel of the area due to loss of increased building site, loss of trees. I think that council's resources would be better spent emphasizing those other more pressing planning matters rather than site-specific heritage overlays. The last point I'd just like to make is that the council visited this topic in 2015, rejected a proposal to put forward a heritage overlay over my property as well as other ones. Nothing's changed in the intervening 8 years, I would submit, and I think that the council should come to the same conclusion as it did in 2015. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tyler. Right on time. Councillors, no questions for Mr. Tyler? There'll be no questions, Mr. Tyler. You may return back to your seat in the gallery. Thank you very much. Our final speaker for this evening is Mr. Sanjeev Well. Mr. Sanjeev, please, Mr. Well. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sanjun, and I'm from number 1 Caravan Street, Bowen.
What was your name again?
Sanjun. S-A-N-J-U-N.
Apologies, I read it as Sanjeev. Sanjun, thank you so much.
That's okay. Look, I've got 4 points here to make, and the first one is regarding to, I'm strongly opposing to this heritage study. The first one is regarding to this heritage study. I found that it's lack of consistency, and also there is no clear guideline or widely accepted guidelines and for the public. It's being addressed by the former speakers. I also find it, for example, in my own case, and for example, my flat roof, in my case, is being regarded as highly remarkable or significant. But in other cases, it's being said it's non-key elements. And also, and despite of my renovations and being regarded as materially altered the appearance of the property, and also the other alterations to a property, it's still being regarded as heritage, while the forms are totally different. I found this is very hard to understand. And also, speaking of a heritage, I think there is no definition of what is heritage, what is significant, and none of these are being addressed. So I believe and we need to go further on that. And secondly, we are also talking about GML, which I found it's a trading company. And bear in mind, everyone, if it's a trading company, they are getting paid, and they are big firms. They're getting paid for doing all the works for more and more works, which I found this is a conflict of interest to itself. If they are to protect the heritage, it doesn't need to be paid and by the councils, by us individuals, and to the council as well. We found the council supposed to be representing all the committees, representing us, but I found in the words and council's been using is this is irrelevant, and this is not being considered. I am no heritage experts, and I believe other owners are not heritage consultants as well. We can't speak all those professional languages, but however, I hope the council, as our last stronghold, to understand we are trying to protect our most valuable assets. I think this is very important to us. There are other cases, and they lost after this heritage overlays being on the property. They lost hundreds of $100,000. We simply can't afford it. As a member of a council, as a ratepayer, I hope the council consider all these points. And lastly, is to the supporters.
Mr. Well, your 3 minutes are up.
Okay, thanks for
Thank you
considering
so much.
that.
Are there any questions for Mr. Well? Mr. Well? Mr. Way? There's a question for you. Apologies.
Yes.
Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. This is just a very minor point of clarification. Is your property number 1 Caravan Street, or is it 1 to 3 Caravan Street?
It's 1 to 3 Caravan Street.
Okay. Officers, could you please note that for the report, that the address is 1-3 Caravan Street, not number 1?
Thank you, Councillor Watson.
Yeah, that's all. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
There be no other question. You may return to your seat. Thank you, Mr. Way. There be no further questions. I move to officers for matters arising. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. In response to, Speaker number 1, 7 Milfay Court in Baldwin North. I did speak quite extensively to the owner on the phone, who initially didn't want to make a submission. I helped her make a submission so we could have everything in writing. We did get her submission, and we asked for more information regarding these changes. The relevant changes on here have been noted and sent through to the heritage consultant. Things like internal changes are not heritage consideration, and things like the landscaping and gardening, they were noted and sent through to our consultant. We have updated the roof based on the feedback from the owner. In regards to speaker number 2 from 67 Hill Road, the matters that were raised in his speech weren't actually given to us in the submission with regards to the discrepancy. So, yeah, we take note of that, and if it does progress to the amendment process, we can have that tested or pass that on to our heritage consultant for further investigation. In regards to speaker 3, yeah, we've responded to that in the submission table. And in regards to speaker 4, he raised concerns with what is heritage. I note that the methodology report wasn't circulated at preliminary consultation because we hadn't received it yet from our consultant. That's a very helpful document to outline the heritage process to him and how it's tested against the relevant policy and legislation. Do you want to?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I might just add on that in terms of how the assessment's undertaken, the heritage citation provides an assessment against the accepted criteria that are used by the heritage consultant. And while there is an element of subjectivity to it, in these assessments. It's not a mathematical formula science that you can apply to every individual place. Those criteria are there to provide a framework for how places are assessed and to determine whether a place is of local heritage significance or not. That also goes to the point of, for some properties or for some places identified, the flat roof is considered to be a significant element of the design, whereas for others it might not be considered such a significant element of the design. So that's where that appearance of inconsistency comes from. But each place, particularly in the case of individually significant places, has to be assessed on their own merit. And the suggestion that we should only include properties in the heritage overlay if they form part of a broader precinct, well, a lot of properties within Boroondara and within broader Melbourne would not be protected if that was the approach that we're taking. The system and the planning framework that we have for heritage protection allows specifically for the protection of individual properties. Properties have significance irrespective of the relationship that they have to properties on adjoining sites or properties in the broader area. So to suggest that we should only protect precincts goes against the fundamental principle of how we approach heritage protection within Victoria. And I think that responds to most of the issues raised tonight.
Thank the officers for their response. Councillors, are there any questions for the officers? I have Councillor Sinfield, followed by Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Chair. A question and point of clarification, please, if I may, through you to officers in relation to 94 Maud Road, Balwyn North. It's my understanding that officers may in fact mean Maud Street in Balwyn North. I don't believe there are two. I don't think there's a Maud Street and a Maud Road. And it should also be without an E. So before this proceeds any further, in the 7 instances where it's incorrectly referenced, as I understand it, and I'm happy to be proven wrong.
You're referring to the citation itself?
Yeah, well...
Or the officer report, sorry.
Both,
okay.
Primarily the officer report, page 1, 7 instances where it occurs. Can I just clarify and ask it as a question? Are there two Maud Street, Maud Road, or am I thinking it's one of the same?
No, that's correct. That is an offer. That is an error.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sinfield. Councillor Watson, followed by... Councillor Hollingsworth, followed by Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Question for Mr Wilmsman. The second presenter, Dr Ludis, referred to 32 Corby as an example of a property that wasn't supported. And I just wanted to ask if you could explain the process that property went to with regard to the panel hearing and the independent bodies that put forward a recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Councillor, and through you, Chair. Certainly, 32 Corby Street was not included in the Heritage Overlay and was abandoned. However, it wasn't abandoned at this stage in the process that we're at the moment. We're at the preliminary consultation process. We haven't started the formal planning scheme amendment process. 32 Corby Street was removed following consideration by an independent planning panel, and Council decided at that point to abandon that part of the amendment, or that amendment, based on the panel's advice that it didn't feel like the threshold was met for inclusion in the heritage overlay, but it was much later in the process rather than at this stage in the process.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth. Councillor Watson, followed by Councillor Park. Councillor Watson?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to foreshadow a motion.
Acknowledged. Councillor Park?
Thank you, Chair. This is a minor question, but previously the heritage study had been referred to as the Balwyn and Balwyn North Heritage Study, and given that the overwhelming majority of these are actually in Balwyn North, and it's now being referred to as the Balwyn Heritage Peer Review, is there any reason for that, or anything precluding us from changing that back to make reference to Balwyn North specifically, They are, of course, very different communities, and as we all know, Balwyn North is much more exciting than Balwyn, so it ought to be specifically mentioned, I would have thought.
Thank you for the question. And through you, Mr. Chair, there is, yes, you're right, it's not just properties in Balwyn. I think it's just a matter of convenience to not have the title too long in the sense that we title these projects. Once it gets to the amendment stage, it'll have an amendment number anyway, which will be the identifying element to make clear what we're talking about. But certainly we can refer to it as Balwyn and Balwyn North moving forward, absolutely.
There be no further questions. Councillor Watson, the time is right for the motion.
Thank you. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Sinfield.
Happy to second.
Thank you for that. Are there any opposition to assist the mover and the seconder? There being no opposition, Councillor Watson as the mover, do you wish to speak to your motion?
Very briefly, Chair, to thank the officers for the work and to also thank the members of our community for coming in this evening and sharing their thoughts. And we certainly need to consider their point of view that they have presented to us this evening. This is a process that we are currently moving through very carefully and methodically, step by step. So I commend the officer's recommendation to my colleagues as another step on this journey. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Sinfield, do you wish as a seconder to speak at all?
Thank you, Chair. It appears to be unopposed at this stage, so no. Thank you.
Welcome. Councillor Watson, there are no final words?
No, thank you, Chair. Happy for the motion to be put.
Thank you very much. I will now put the motion. Those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, the officers, and thank you, everyone in the gallery for presenting tonight. Appreciate that. We haven't finished the main part of the agenda. Can I ask governance to recall Councillor Thompson, please? Oh, I missed. Okay. Welcome back, Councillor Thompson. We'll now move to item number 4 in the agenda, general business. Councillors, is there any general business for this evening? There be no general business? Any urgent business? No urgent business? We don't have any confidential business? But before I close the meeting, I'd like to thank you all who have joined us this evening and wish you all and your family good health. I declare the Urban Planning Delegated Committee meeting closed. Thank you very much.